Devil May Cry was one of my favorite series. I loved the stylish themes, the cool aesthetics, and most of all, the characters, such as Virgil, Lady, and of course, the star of this video and the games itself, Dante. Dante is such a great and compelling character because he fights for what he believes in, no matter how difficult it gets. And yes, most of the time it's an easy victory for him, but he still poses challenges against both the world, himself, and his family, the things he loves. And so, for today's video, we will be discussing why Dante from the animated series, or as I will be referring to him, Dante, doesn't follow the themes and values that made the core character so compelling. So first, I would like to discuss his involvement in the story. Dante starts off the story by not doing anything. He just happens to fight a random demon baby that he ultimately can't even save the woman from because it gets away. He doesn't follow up on it. He just proceeds to loaf off at his favorite ice cream parlor, which there's nothing too wrong with that, but it leaves a bitter taste in the character's mouth, especially when he can't even come up with anything compelling to say on his first introduction to the show. And after that, we see a lot more odd things found in the story, such as how he doesn't react at all to seeing his own brother, even if it's fake, because, well, the demon, by transforming into his brother, should tell him all he needs to know, that his brother's still around, and yet he can't put two and two together. He could never see that as a possibility. In fact, Dante doesn't even know who his father is. He doesn't know about the legendary knight Sparta, and how the sword he wields on his back is one of his own legendary blades. Or at least, that's how it is in the games. See, in the show, the rebellion that Dante has is nothing more than just a rod of metal. He only uses it a couple of times on regular people, and even then, it has no sharpness whatsoever. He can't cut through anything with it. It was as if he was wielding a metal pipe like he was Cody Travers. Dante, all he does with it is nothing. And for most of his important fights, such as against Agni and Rundra, he relies on using his bare knuckles in his devil trigger. And it's so disappointing because despite how much effort Dante puts into the fight, his actions just can't do as much as a bullet, because eventually that's what ends up killing Rundra. Explosive round, yes, but something that a legendary demon knight such as himself should have no problems doing far more than. And yet, he still can't beat Rundra. And Dante isn't just a character who's foolhardy or doesn't really know what's going on with him. He doesn't know or care what's going on with the world, such as in episode 3, when he poses the question to Cavalier Angelo that do all demons have to be bad? But it's not even a remark that goes into regards of the themes of the show. Instead, it's only a show of his own selfish, shallow carelessness. He doesn't care about the other demons. He doesn't see them as anything more than something to make himself look good. And all of these traits of Dante, they're not at all like the original. Instead, they're more like what the hack and slash series eventually parodied itself with characters such as Travis Touchdown. See, Travis Touchdown is very akin to Dante in the sense that he only does this for his own ego, pride, bloodlust, and basal urges. Something that sounds like, what does that even have to do with Dante? Well, that's simple. It doesn't, but I guess now it does. See, Travis is a character who's very similar to Dante from the games, to the point where you can tell he's meant to be a riff on him. He has the red jacket, He has the stylish outfit, he has a cool sword, and he even has a twin brother. All things make him sound exactly like our stand-up hero. But he is not. He doesn't do this for the sake of others, he does it for himself. This also pursues his ambition for a bunch of sketchy women around him, only choosing to think with the wrong head. And what does this have to do with Dante? Why are we hearing about this red-coated loser? Because that's what Dante's is. He doesn't follow Mori throughout the adventure for the sake of his amulet or his own heritage. He only does it because he's vaguely interested in her. That's it. He doesn't care about protecting the world. He only cares about nothing, really. His own self-interest, I suppose, but he's not a very nuanced character. He doesn't bother to try to save the world, or save himself, or even properly save Mori. He just is kind of dumb, and also thinks with the wrong head. And we can presume this from the fact that he makes jokes and lines that the regular Dante never would. Like, he makes a yo mama joke, which is so out of character for Dante that it completely removes any sense of immersion or enjoyment that you could have from his character. All Dante does is fight like a thug, despite him being a legendary hero. I mean, one of his powers is quite literally instant weapon mastery, and yet here he acts like he's never used a sword in his life. He can barely even use the Devil Sword Sparta once that comes about, and that's only out of convenience rather than skill. And Dante as a whole just isn't a stylish character. His design isn't that well-rounded. He has suspenders. His design has so much emphasis on a belt buckle that isn't even really there. He is just a man who looks like an amalgam of another man without any regard to why those things were important. And speaking of that, now we'll be discussing Ebony and Ivory. Dante's trademark pistols that sadly didn't make the cut for the first season, and even more so will be in the second. And you might be asking, how can this be a bad thing? That's something you want for him to be more like the games. Yes, but the problem is that Dante is so far removed from how Dante gets the Ebony and Ivory that it's not going to be at all good in the show. See, Dante gets his trademark pistols by being a surrogate son to a woman called Nell Goldstein, who eventually dies before she can give him the guns. And that's why they're as trademark and stylized as they are. That's why they have things on them, like the misspelling of works with an A as a reference to her son, or the fact that it says for Tony Redgrave ingrained on the guns, because Dante was Tony Redgrave. But here, the show, Dante isn't even Dante, he's Dante. He doesn't know who he is or have any care for his heritage. He's just a man who happens to have superpowers. He's no hero, and I don't think he ever will be. And going into this, I wanted this show to be good. I was hoping maybe it'd just be simple, like a milquetoast adaptation of the games, because that's kind of the best you can hope for in this industry. But unfortunately, it's an utter disregard to what makes Dante such a special character. He instead just barely looks like himself, to the point where when his coat's removed, his outfit is completely unstylish. He just looks rough, and not in a Devil May Cry 5 way. He's just dressed like a regular dude, and all he has to offer is homages to things that are just better in the games. That's it. Nothing he does for himself or as an homage is better than what it originally was. And I appreciate Johnny M. Bosch's talents and what he brings to the character, but I feel like they ultimately would have been better off picking up someone such as, well, Drew Combs can't come back, but Tim Phillips would have been great from the reboot because he adds a lot more vulnerability that would work well for the character. But instead, we have our hero who only just smiles around like a psychopath. Technically, by the show's own internal logic, he's a mass murderer because of his failures in stopping the enemies. And the notion of having a hero such as Dante, who normally fights legendary demons like Mundus, have to go toe-to-toe against the United States government, that's so far removed from what the character's about, it's not even funny. They should have just made this a Resident Evil show. But alas, we have to cut our losses and accept the failures of Dante and live with the shortcomings of the show. And as unfortunate as this is, we do still have things to love about the series. I am not making this video out of hatred for the new show, despite my disliking of it. I'm making this video because I love Devil May Cry, and I always want to see it be the best it can be. And I really do enjoy every single game, including the 2013 reboot, because of that passion, that care, and that drive. I want the best for Dante. I want him to have a successful future in the new era. But I also have to acknowledge when the series has its faults and what could be done better instead of putting it in the hands of someone who only uses our favorite heroes as leverage for his own career. Dante deserves better, and Dante deserves to have fans like us who can stick up for him. Thank you for listening. This was SP, signing out.
「もう少し強くならないとな」